Hey everybody, this is Dan Gonzalez from Cakewalk. I'm here on the show with a very special guest, Daniel Rowland from LANDR. How you doing, Daniel?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Dan?
I am doing fantastic. You guys are in Montreal, right? Or where are you?
Yeah, Lander's based out of Montreal. I'm in Nashville though, so I'm part-time Nashville, part-time LA.
Part-time Nashville, part-time LA. Wow, that's pretty fancy, dude. That's really cool. How long have you been with LANDR?
I've been there almost 7 months now.
Oh,
So
wow. So you're a
for a
newbie.
minute,
That's cool. That's
I,
cool.
I am I am a newbie. They found me. I have an app company that I was at South by Southwest promoting. We do audio uh, effects processing apps, and they came and approached me last year in March at South by, and then I kind of looked at the company for you know the rest of the year, kind of deciding what I wanted to do, seeing how they were growing, what direction they were going in, and I came on I think in October,
Wow, that's really awesome. So
something like
you
that.
you had your own company running before anything at LANDR, and you just kind of like dove in and you did something rad, and they picked you up and they were like, "You got some skills. Come and work for us."
Yeah, just being into new tech and kind of trying to, being future thinking. Obviously, Lander is that, if anything.
Yeah,
So, yeah, man, and it's been really cool, I have to say.
that's killer, man. So what exactly do you do for LANDR? Like, what is your main objective? Like, did they give you a list of things to do's when you signed up, or you just kind of like left to your own devices?
So my official title, at least at this point, is senior audio engineer. And
Ooh,
what that encompassed when I first started was just doing a lot of research, man, trying to anything and everything to improve the engine. Lander is, as you might imagine, is a constantly improving product.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And given that it's based on machine learning, the more data that it gets, the more tracks that it gets, the more it improves. And there's a total team of engineers there supervising it and tweaking it and trying to make sure that the results are the results that they would do personally if they were mastering something. So that was kind of my initial thing, and I still do that, but I've moved more into working with our major label clients. So Lander has a number of major labels on board that use it, and I spend a lot of time. That's why I'm in LA a lot, is because I'm dealing
Oh,
with them.
I,
So my role is transitioning into that, being more of the liaison to the high end professional part of the industry.
well, that is awesome. Now, I'm going to say that you are more than just a mastering or mixing engineer. Are you more of are you also a songwriter, composer, or producer? Like, what do you do outside of LANDR? Because it looks like you got some serious stuff going on there in the
Yeah.
background.
If we have some time at the end, I'll have to show you this. We've got a closet off to the side here that's got like 150 guitar pedals and all analog synths and all sorts of crazy stuff in it. It's
They're all
interesting.
Gibsons, right? No, I'm
Every
kidding.
one of them is a Gibson, strangely enough. Though Gibson has been really great to us, I have
Oh,
to
that's
say. So
awesome.
I'm coming to you from Adrian Ballou's studio in Nashville. So this is Studio Ballou, where Adrian, is very well known guitar player for David Bowie and Frank Zappa and Talking Heads and Nine Inch Nails and all that kind of good stuff. And he's done a
Yeah.
bunch of
Oh, I
tons of
know who
solo.
Adrian is. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I've been working with Adrian for about 7 years. So I co-produce all of his music and have engineered everything he's done for quite some time and tour with him and all that kind of good stuff. So this is his place that I built.
Wow.
And yeah, so we do anything and everything. I do work outside of working with Aid, obviously, but we're almost full time, at it. We put out apps, we put out obviously albums and do some film score stuff too.
Damn, dude. That's awesome. You're a jack of all trades, it seems. That's really
I,
killer.
I try to be, yeah. I try. You have to be anymore, man. That's kind of
Yeah.
the thing, right?
That's what I've heard from many other people that I know.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. So to get back to the LANDR thing,
Sure.
you mentioned something called machine learning. Now,
Yeah.
I have a feeling that some of the people at home who are watching this, maybe they're kind of, they were kind of like, "Ooh, what's machine learning? How does that work?"
Well,
Could you give us maybe in layman's terms an understanding or a description of what machine learning actually is?
sure. And honestly, people at home who are saying that are me about 7 months ago. So
Okay,
it's
all right,
okay.
all right, all right.
Yeah.
So it's fresh in your
Coming,
mind.
yeah. So I'm super into tech, but I come obviously more from the producer engineer side of things. So
Mhm.
yeah, man. So machine learning, basically, like super high level, is trying to get computers to act, to do things without being told to necessarily. So in other words, being able to feed a whole bunch of data into a system and then have it make judgments based upon that data.
I
And
see.
it's the same thing that's resulted in like Facebook, face recognition and speech recognition, and the self-driving cars are based on this, and even really you know, good web search engines are based on machine learning. Is they learn your preferences and things like that the more you use them. And yeah, I mean, Lander is entirely based upon that, with the addition of having human mastering engineers supervising the whole process to make sure it's going in the right direction, and that it treats genres the way they should be treated differently from others, so on and so forth. So
Wow.
that's what it is. So it's a machine learning, but it's also supervised by humans. It's not some robot in the sky that's going off on its own and mastering music.
Right, right, right. That's really cool. So it's essentially building a system that can find a problem like kind of on its own and solve that problem on its own.
And treat that problem, use its experiences with that problem in similar tracks to make that judgment, but not treat it the exact same way.
Gotcha.
So it's not, certainly not like a preset or something like that. It's looking at every problem as an independent problem. But it's really, if you think about it, it's based upon the way that humans would solve a problem, right? You look at your experiences and use those as a reference for how you're going to treat what's in front of you. It's the same type of thing.
Cool. So it's kind of two worlds, the world of like statistics and the world of like computer science coming together.
Absolutely.
How does it affect mastering? Because right now, what LANDR is, and maybe we should actually explain what LANDR is, because for some of the people who don't even know what it is. Can you give us a high level of what LANDR is?
Yes. Yeah. LANDR is an automated mastering system. So there's a website, and there's also the thing that I use with it is the desktop app.
Gotcha.
Where you can drag and drop multiple files into it, and within minute, 2 minutes, get back some options for your master, and you can choose loudness.
Gotcha.
At this point, various degrees of loudness, and preview them, render them, and have a master. So
wow.
That is simply what it is. And it's in the future, it's going to become other things. We have also LANDR. The thing that, just as an aside, drew me to the company is the amount of stuff they have in the works. It's kind of like an iceberg where the majority of what's happening you don't see is crazy. So this is,
somehow I completely and utterly believe you.
Yeah, well, super geniuses are behind this, I have to say. I'm not one of them, but I'm on board. So, no, but yeah. So anyway, back to the story. That's what it is. It's an automated mastering system, and it's now you can even as you bounce stuff from your DAW, it can bounce into a folder and automatically go up to the cloud and come back and be mastered without you even having to drag and drop. And they have just this week, a new DJ set mastering thing. So we've partnered with Serato, so that now, LANDR can master very long, 2, 3, 4 hour long DJ sets.
Oh, wow. Cool. That's pretty awesome, man. Yeah, that's gonna be great. As far as mastering is concerned, like, now you seem like we were talking about, you're a jack of all trades. So how has LANDR affected your workflow? Like I'm assuming 7 months ago when you were, doing your thing, I'm sure were you using LANDR, or was this something that you just adopted because you started working there and it has affected your workflow, in your own personal engineering kind of profession?
All right, so I'll be brutally honest here.
Okay, all right. That's what this is about. Genuine conversation.
Yeah, man. So, when LANDR approached me initially, I had not really heard of them. I think I'd seen something on LinkedIn about them or something like that, but I really didn't know what LANDR was, honestly.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So I kind of alluded to this earlier, that after they kind of came and chatted with me, I was like, man, this is a really cool idea. I've been talking, like a lot of professors, I'm a professor, I've been talking to my students about, hey, automated mixing, automated mastering is coming. Yeah. It's an eventuality. Who's going to do it first? How are you going to tweak your career based on that? So on and so forth. And so I started playing around with it, and I thought it was okay. Yeah. I was like, I love the idea. Yeah. But I thought, it had a lot of room to grow. And this is a little over a year ago at this point. Yeah. But if you think about plugins when they first came about, think about the MP3 and how crappy that was, when it first came out. I was like, all right, like any software, this is going to get better. So right. I kind of kept looking at it, kept going. When they would update a revision and they would do a new revision of the software, I would check it out. And after 6 months, I was like, man, this didn't just get 10% better in 6 months. It got like 50% better in 6 months. So, and since then, now it's exponentially better than what it was when I first encountered it. So for me, that's what's been interesting, is to see how much it's grown. So honestly, initially when I messed with it, I would not personally have probably used it for mastering. Mm-hmm. It was good because it gave me some feedback on my mixes, and it pointed out some things that maybe I wasn't paying attention to, and I would go back and tweak. Right. But I wouldn't have probably released something with it, just being totally honest. Wow. Now I just did. Adrian's last record is mastered by LANDR. We've done some major albums that have been mastered by LANDR.
Wow. That's incredible. Just
did a new classical project that's mastered by LANDR, and not like mastered by LANDR and I went and tweaked it afterwards. It's legitimately done by LANDR. So, and I'm not going to put, obviously, if LANDR does something I don't like, I'm going to, go make some adjustments, but it's been pretty good.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, it sounds, I have very similar thoughts about it when we were initially received LANDR, and we kind of were like, oh, this is a little gimmicky, and then I think it was about 3 months ago. Well, we were in the office, and one of the product managers was like, "You need to check out LANDR again because it's way better now, way better." And
that was my experience too. And the scary part about that is, it's not scary, obviously, it's exciting, is that, man, in 3 months, in 6 months, like, it's getting to the point where it's now about refining, tweaking, making it more granular as far as the genres that it can split things up into. And it's going to be one of those things that is a ubiquitous part of a lot of people's workflows in a very short period of time. It's impressive, I have to say. And I didn't come up with it, so obviously I'm saying that as somebody who's just impressed by the people behind it.
Yeah. Well, the thing I was impressed by it was how it handled some of the weird tricks and stuff that I do as a mixing engineer on my master. So at the end of my mixing stage, I'm sure you do something very similar. There's a lot of automation. There's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of fairy dust put on my final mix before I send it to mastering. Right. It's all that creative stuff that you do at the end to make it your own. And some of those things would be like pushing snare levels a little bit hotter so that the bus compression or whatever compression they're using in the master hits a little bit harder. You know what I mean? Little things like that I know a mastering engineer will be able to, be like, all right, cool. The level's really hard, but I'm hitting it with my, it's just a bunch of different little things that happen. I was really impressed that when I sent it off to this LANDR algorithm, it compensated for it as if it was just some dude. You know what I mean? Like it was just like, oh yeah, this thing knew that I was pushing snare levels in the center kind of hot because it was going to hit the master pretty heavily. And it just kind of corrected for that. It was like, wow, I actually have a lot of confidence in this thing now. This is incredible.
Blown away by it. You bring up a really good point too, that making adjustments in mixing, knowing what mastering is going to do. And one of the most common ones is exactly what you just said. And of course I do the same thing, which is knowing the dynamics processing is going to affect, transient detail, or at least, certainly your snare drum, pushing it a little hotter so that if it gets dialed back and with, limiting in compression, that it's still where you wanted it to be.
Exactly.
And, that's one thing I think I know actually people have used LANDR for a lot. And I guess I hadn't really thought about this when I was looking at it myself initially, even though, I used it for something similar, is that it really is teaching them about what mastering can and can't do. So instead of sending a track off and getting it legitimately mastered by somebody and you get maybe one revision or something, you can continually feed the same mix. And people do this a lot, like the same mix through LANDR like 5 or 10 times and get it back and say, oh, okay, well, if I'm referencing against, whatever my favorite song is, well, my vocals weren't loud enough, they weren't present enough, they weren't whatever, because mastering can compensate for some of that, but it's not magic.
Right.
And I think people who don't have a lot of experience with it think that it is, and it doesn't matter who in the world masters your song; they can only work with what you give them.
Exactly.
So helping people refine their mixing technique, I think, is probably one of the biggest benefits of what LANDR does.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. That's one, like I said, that's one of the things that really blew me away about it was just how it really responded to those things, and that's really amazing. So I guess that kind of brings me to my next question. What do you think? Because I know you're not a part of the initial. You weren't a part of the initial, the inception of the idea and the research. Sure. But from your point of view, what do you think the most difficult thing? What do you think was the most difficult thing to overcome in the mastering process for LANDR? Is there like something where it's like, oh man, it did it again? Is that like, what is the answer to that? Like, what situation are your engineers talking about? Like, damn it did it again. Like, what is that? I don't know if that's an actual thing or not, but I'm very curious about that.
Well, maybe not that exact thing, but there are certainly things we can chat about. One of which is, and this is again, given that LANDR is modeled on the behavior of a real mastering engineer, it's got some issues that are the same issues that real mastering engineers deal with. And one of those is people who submit, understandably, by the way, because I do this too, really, really loud mixes, which, is kind of, for some people is standard practice, right? Even for professional mix engineers, you really mix it the way that you want it to be. You want the master to be, and you give it to the mastering engineer just to make some subtle adjustments, and they don't even really need to do anything loudness wise because it's already there. So having LANDR be something that can work with, somebody's, classical piece that has the, wide dynamic range all the way up to an EDM track that is loud, as loud as it could possibly be already.
Right.
Is definitely the biggest challenge.
Yeah,
so
that
is, and it's one of the things, honestly, when I came on board that we, really, they were already focused on, but really started focusing on, particularly the loudness side of things. So there's some freaking really cool stuff coming out, very shortly with LANDR. So it's about that, man. I keep saying this and it sounds like a sales pitch or something, but it's about to take, it's already cool, but it's about to take a significant leap in the next iterations coming out. So it's pretty exciting. And that's kind of where I came on board. That stuff's just now coming out. So that's why I'm probably so geeked about it. But
yeah,
whatever. But loudness thing is probably the biggest challenge.
What do you think the overall acceptance of LANDR has been since it was released and now into the world and kind of proven itself as far as a real utility? How do you think that's changed over the past 2 years, 3 years? I don't even know how long it's actually been out for.
It's been public. It's been in the works for, the research is back 7 years ago.
Oh, I'm sure.
it's been public for almost 2 years now.
Okay, cool.
So, man. So, I guess the answer to this is twofold. One of which, because sonically it is growing like you would expect any software to grow.
Yeah.
That's helped with the acceptance. It legitimately is, better than it was a year ago. Right.
Yeah.
But that aside, because LANDR could be, let's just be honest, it could be the perfect mastering engine, right? It could be just immaculate. And philosophically, people would hate on it,
Yeah, there's always a hater.
So it does, the sound quality is supremely important, but B is also the idea that, it's somehow it's robots taking people's jobs or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
And so that's the interesting part. And actually for me, I've been pleasantly surprised by the people I expected there to be more pushback than there actually is, especially on the professional level and the label level, and colleagues of mine who are majors in the industry. And I've been really surprised that, I approach them and I'm like, oh crap, they're going to scream at me about this. And they've been like, oh yeah, no, we knew this was coming for a long time. It's, people it's not putting mastering engineers who are really good at what they do are always going to have jobs because people want that. And it's kind of like, it's like the autofocus camera. People screamed, this is just to go to a completely different technology. When that came out, purists were like, what? If you don't focus manually, it's not usable and you're never going to take a good picture. But manual focus still exists and autofocus still exists. And people use both of them depending on what their needs are. And it's the same thing with mastering and what LANDR does, honestly. And of course, it's about budget and a lot of other things too, and about convenience and about the amount of time you have and all that. But
that's cool. Yeah. So it's like a tool in your tool belt. You know what I mean? It's like
absolutely.
You've got a tool in your tool belt. You're going to take that tool out when you need to use it, and if you don't need to use it and it's not relevant, then you don't use it. But it's just not replacing anything. It's just one more thing to advance your profession, your whatever you need. Because I mean, if you can get something done from point A to point B and you release a master, nobody's going to say, oh, dude, did you master that with LANDR? Sounds like you mastered that with LANDR. I'm going to listen to this because you mastered it with LANDR. You know what I mean?
Of course not. But, as nerds, man, as tech guys, we, and this is for a lot of people watching this, we tend to get tied up in the process a lot, and focus a little bit maybe too much on the minutia and not on the final product. And I'm guilty of this, as much as anybody. And ultimately, it's about the result. It's about the result.
It's about getting from point A to point B and making the client or whoever you're trying to, release your product to or create your thing for, is happy, and that's really cool. So yeah, I dig it, man. I'm really into the idea. We here at Cakewalk, there's always conversations happening about LANDR. You know what I mean? We're always
following,
you've been
some
following
of the online conversation too. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been checking it out. It's people. There are haters, there are lovers, and there are people who are like, cool, this is just like you said, this has come, this is basically, it makes sense that it's here by now. I'm surprised it hasn't gotten here yet, and
yeah, me too. And honestly, if there, and haters have a place too, man. If there wasn't haters, then we wouldn't be doing something disruptive.
That's true. That's true.
Honestly, and I know legitimately, people don't like it. That's okay as well. I get that. I come from, the other side of the fence, obviously, but it's something that I think what people are going to find I keep alluding to things that are coming out, but that you'll be able to use LANDR in your workflow, even if maybe the mastering part isn't the thing you're so interested in. So it's something that's going to become this, it's really cool to have Cakewalk on board with this, because again, you guys are, don't even know a lot of the stuff that I'm referring to, but it's going to become this umbrella thing that really enables a lot of improvements in people's workflow, even outside of mastering. But that's all right now. Mastering is what it does, but just,
gotcha.
Keep your ears open.
All right. So I got a question for you. This is this is going to be it. Okay. If you didn't work at LANDR and you were using LANDR, what would you like to see next in terms of where the company releases?
That is a trick. You're trying to trick me. You are a smart man.
Hey man, I'm just doing my job. No, I'm kidding. No, actually, no. I'd love to know. I mean, I know that's if you can't talk about anything.
Okay. I'll give it to you. All right. Sure. I have to be tactful about this.
No, I was tactful about the question.
But no, I mean, I think this is a pretty obvious, I think this would be the answer that anybody would give, is that right now, LANDR is geared towards mastering singles, right? You can master an album with it, but it's not set up necessarily for that, where, you don't drop a bunch of songs in and it treats them like an album and it puts them into a category with an album and you enter in. Like that would be, if I was a user, that would be what I would be looking forward to coming out at some point.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's your feature request. That
would be my, because that's an understandable, feature we want. So that maybe is something that's being focused on.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's awesome. That's kind of some of the questions I had about LANDR and what it's doing. But as far as just you in general, how's it going, man? How's life? How's what are you working on? Tell me about what you're doing.
Oh man, I'm super lucky that I get to do all sorts of crazy stuff. So I just
sounds like it, man.
Spent a couple weeks in West Hollywood, rented a house with a big studio, and had an artist there, and we all lived in the house and worked on a record. The artist is Jesse Boykins, who's an excellent R&B soul artist, and we just did that.
Killer.
Working on a big Disney movie right now, getting ready to go out to Skywalker Ranch to been working on it for almost 5 years, so we're going out to work with the orchestra and actually record the music for it, which is cool. That's next week, so I'm super geeked. As anybody would be super geeked about that.
That's really cool, man. So what came first, Skywalker tour or that Millennium Falcon you got in the background there?
Yeah, no, the Millennium Falcon's been there since for a minute.
The dawn of time.
But yeah, man, I just getting to do cool stuff, working on some apps. So I'm big into the iOS world, so using iPads and iPhones and integrating them into your traditional studio setup, and then building apps that kind of facilitate that.
Nice.
Yeah, so just and then I'll be I speak at a lot of conferences, so NAMM, South by Southwest, all that kind of stuff on guitar technology. So I'm putting some things together for summer NAMM. So if anybody's going to be in Nashville, I'll be hanging out there.
That's awesome. Do you have any more events or things you've created that are coming up and getting released that you'd love to push?
A couple more albums by Baloo. There's a really cool record. I alluded to this earlier. It's a classical metal album that I did, which is not something in a world that I typically go into, by Wolf Hoffman, who's the guitarist of Accept. That'll be coming out on Nuclear Blast here.
I played a show with those dudes one time. Wow. Accept?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in 2009, my buddies and I, we went down to the summer festival in San Antonio, and Accept headlined. We opened for them. Those guys are, I feel like those guys just rule the South.
Dude. Yeah, I've toured all over the world with that band. Like I built their live sound system and do the programming for all the guitar systems and stuff. And they're really good guys. And the albums are extremely cool. And this is a new kind of a thing that I think they're going to try and tour with, which is going to be really cool with an orchestra. So it'll be it.
Well, cool. Feel free to call me or send me an email anytime you ever want to come back on Cake Talk and hang and just chat about geeky stuff that you're working on. Because it sounds like you've got a lot of stuff going on just inside of LANDR and outside of LANDR. So we would love to stay updated on all the stuff you're working on.
Absolutely, man. I would love to do it, Dan.
Cool, man. That's wonderful. Well, cool. My name's Dan, and this is Daniel. And thanks for joining us on Cake Talk this week. Later, guys.
Peace.